The Death Corps are the ultimate loyal soldiers, because they were engineered to be. Welcome, Initiate. We all know the story of the Death Corps of Krieg, a tale of ultimate sacrifice and a tragic history of betrayal with redemption at its end. Today, the Illuminati Broadcast Network dives in a little crack of that sanctioned story about how the Imperium didn't forge the Death Corps' fanatical death cult and sacrifice. They just never corrected it, because it was far too useful to ever let it be fixed. In this transmission, I'm going to talk about how the greatest sin of Krieg isn't its ancient rebellion, but the cold, bureaucratic machine that perpetuates its suffering. To know more of this, we have to ask a simple question. Who decided what that loyalty was worth? When the last rebels on Krieg were crushed, the High Lords of Terra didn't send forgiveness. They sent the Tithe. Accountants carrying data slates and not honor. Krieg's tithe had gone unpaid for 500 years, without soldiers nor resources, just a red entry in the infinite ledgers of the Administratum. When the Loyalists won and offered their shattered world back to the Emperor, here you probably could expect some gratitude, but the men and women of Krieg were ashamed of their rebellion and believed they will have to fight to erase it. The Imperium knew they are not only fighting for shame and duty, but they were fighting to balance a spreadsheet. Every soldier born in the bunkers of Krieg is a biological asset, a quantifiable unit of payment on a deficit that can never be fully repaid. The desperate need to die in service. The High Lords didn't see it as a noble spiritual calling. They only saw it as a favorable interest rate. The Imperium has even a term for it. Krieg is designated a tithe grade of exactus tertius, the maximum possible extraction from any world. It isn't a punishment from the Imperium, just a classification, because the Imperium knows it could squeeze everything from Krieg, and they will send more. The Administratum calculated the cost of that type of sin, and the Death Corps are fighting to pay a bill that was tallied before the first of them was ever born. But to meet the debt, Kriegers don't have the typical family unity where the first son enlists in the military. They create soldiers. 50 million of them per year through the Vitae womb, an artificial reproductive machine that incubates and creates the genetic descendant of the previous batch. This technology is not cloning. They are just, for lack of better words, test tube babies, and the Adeptus Mechanicus is not very fond of this machine, but tolerates it for the quota. If you know why the AdMech doesn't like it, leave a comment under the transmission. You would think a soldier is trained, but on Krieg, they are broken first, then remade. This starts before a child can walk. Tunnel drills while they are still small, live fire exercises where casualties aren't failures, just the program working correctly. Their reward for enduring all of this? The aspiration of a war zone worthy of their death. Now, consider what that means. Pull off the gas mask of a Death Corps soldier, and underneath the respirator, the greatcoat, and the numerical designation, you will find a teenager, a mind purposefully broken and remade before it ever had a chance to form. Dear Initiate, we could think the gas mask is just for protection for gases, but I fear that it is a face replacement, so the Imperium never needs to see what is underneath. The problem with undying loyalty is that it could become pointless. That was what happened in the Orphean War, recorded as a necessary campaign. The histories speak of heroism and a brutal sacrifice. Late in the 41st millennium, 2 million Death Korps soldiers were deployed to Orpheus Sector, already half consumed by the Necrons against the awakening Maynarch dynasty. On Amara Prime, Marshal Karis Venner found his forces surrounded, the hive cities in ruins, the governor presumably dead. He made the choice that was quintessentially Krieg. He ordered every last soldier to charge, and won. The Death Korps were the only forces not just able to repel the Necron assault, but to lead a successful counter-assault that destroyed the principal tomb complex materializing on the world. 2 million soldiers, the product of the debt and the factory and the broken children, achieved something no other regiment, even the Adeptus Astartes present in the same battlefield, could. So they achieved victory, but sacrificed themselves to it. Why is it pointless, you may ask? My problem is not with the battlefield itself. It is from what comes next. The High Lords of Terra noted the result, and then they dissolved the Orpheus sector anyway. The scale of the Necron awakening made the sector strategically non-viable. The decision to abandon it was all but inevitable before the first charge was ordered. The Death Korps destroyed their objective, and the Administratum closed the ledger, because the machine was pointed at a new war zone. Kriegers weren't sent to fail, just to produce a result they did achieve. So the result was filed, the sector was abandoned, the sacrifice was real, and it changed nothing. That is the machine working exactly as designed. At the start of this transmission, I said the Imperium didn't create the Death Korps' death cult. They simply never corrected it. That was the truth, but let me explain what I'm referring to. The Imperium didn't need to create the cult. A factory that runs itself, fuels itself, and provides its own willing workers is the only kind of factory the Adeptus Terra truly respects. They didn't correct the Death Korps' suicidal tendencies because they didn't want to. The debt is keeping the factory oiled and running, producing broken children that have to become soldiers, so the machine never stops. And that machine never needed a single order from Terra to keep going. The Illuminati Broadcast Network doesn't tell you what to think, but I will leave you with a thought. The story of shame and atonement is the version Krieg tells itself. My file tells a different story, one of spreadsheets and quotas, of a debt that can never be paid, and a factory that will never stop running, because the Imperium has forgotten how to turn it off. Leave your assessment below. The Death Korps report is closed. But the network doesn't stop broadcasting. The next report is already waiting, dear Initiate. And what it contains is something the Administratum has been trying to bury for 10,000 years. If you are not yet a registered Initiate, the subscribe button is right there. The Council is watching who clicks it. Illuminati Broadcast Network, out.